So apparently we are live now. Hi, hey everybody, how you doing? This is the front door shirt. This is the Cinco de Mayo show. So we have a special guest. This is the artist interview today. And online here I have White Knight. What's going on,
Happy
Mr.
New
White
Year,
Knight?
Angelo. How are you, my friend?
Good, 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 good. I'm glad we got a chance to put you on the show here. I know we talked about doing some stuff together and stuff like that. So, first of all, everybody good? You're healthy. Everybody is great.
While in quarantine, locked away, I can't wait till this is over so we can go out and have some parties, do some shows,
Good.
get off, do some festivals. I just can't wait to get out of here.
Ah, I think all of us are like that. So, so this is the artist interview. So this is you're my first artist interview. Um,
And you're the first show the first place I've been with a green shirt on. So there you go.
So I'm going to honestly say that I've known you for quite a long time, but how did you get started in this business? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, because technically, because you were a rapper, when you got into the house music, and as far as we know, rap was all hip hop, right?
Right. So it's a very interesting thing. So I grew up in Humboldt Park, and there used to be a nightclub that was colossally huge in the dance music movement, and it was called Janelle's. And I used to hang around with the world-renowned Al Cisneros now, who will go down in history as probably one of the greatest promoters, who actually gave me my first break. So we used to go down there. We used to go to dance there and hang out. And there was, the Culitos and Porta Taste, a bunch of different. It was just the place was just popping. It was the place. And I was this little kid hanging in there, of having dreams of making music. So I was really good friends with Jesse Velez.
Who was that again?
Jesse Velez,
Oh yes, beautiful guy.
the world's most famous littlest DJ. And he made the hit record, Girls on the Floor, Just Move That Golito. Doom, 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 doom. Okay, so I'm not going to do a show. But yeah, so there was a big B-boy contest over at Janelle's. And, I had a group with Jesse Velez called, at that time I was Kid Finesse, not White Knight. So it was Kid Finesse and Dr. Beat, because we, made this alias group. So we got up on stage that night. The place was packed. It was a b-boy battle. We did our first show, and so I owe my first show ever to Al Cisneros from Janelle's, simply because I had no business up there. Here's this little white kid in the hood, even though I was from the hood, curly blonde hair. Everybody's looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? Who are you? What the hell is this? But it really turned out good. And so after that, I got a taste of it, and I wanted to make a record. So I was always hanging around with Jesse, and Jesse was so popular then. Everybody would ditch school, and there'd be 2,000-3,000 people down on the lake. They'd set up DJ equipment, throw huge parties, and ditch school, and all this crazy stuff. So I got a taste for it, and I wanted to make records. So the story as it goes is I was telling Jesse, because at the time he had that hit out, Move That Colito, right?
Oh,
And,
so he already had the song out already. Girls out on the floor.
no, he did. He already had Move That Girls Out on the Floor, Move That Colito. It was Jesse Velez and his cousin Rocco, in the family. It was kind of like, a family thing. And so, we were really good friends. At that time, Jesse was really short. And here we are driving around in a Cutlass, speeding down Fullerton Avenue. We couldn't even see over the dashboard. You know, crazy stuff. So he decides that, I told him I want to make a record. He goes, well, I'm gonna. His actual words were, I'm gonna take you down to meet my boy B, which was Rocky Jones, and Benji Espinosa, DJ International. And so we go in there, and Jesse introduced me to them, and he's like, to Rocky, and he says, hey, my friend wants to make a record. Well, he's like, okay, cool. What do you do? I said, nothing. I don't do anything. He goes, I just want to make a record. He goes, what? He goes, get out of here. You're not going to, I can't have you on the label. You know, what are you going to do? Get out of here. So we leave. And it was kind of like, I look back at it and it was kind of like Jesse letting me down slow. Right. So we get in the car. He goes, AB, I tried to get your record deal. It didn't work out. Okay, cool. Let's go. So unfortunately, it was a couple of weeks later, Jesse passed away, which was pretty, you know, really devastating. And, you know, about a week went by and some people in the neighborhood were coming up to me and said, hey, this guy's looking for your name, Rocky. And I'm thinking to myself, who the hell's Rocky? I don't know Rocky. And they go, no, the guy from the record label. He wants you to go over there. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go over there, I walk in, and he says, I sit down in the office. I'm like, sure, how can I help you? What's going on? He goes, Jesse's last request for me was for you to make a record.
Wow.
So you're going to the studio tomorrow. And that's what happened. So the first record that I wrote was Never Give Up, and it was dedicated to Jesse. And, you know, I'm in the studio, and that was an incredible time. I mean, I had everyone and their mother. Well, Jesse was part of the Zulu Nation with Africa Bambaataa. And through Jesse, you know, I met Jam Master Jay, and I also met Africa Islam. So it was Africa Bambaataa, Africa Islam, Zulu Nation. So I called him up on the phone and I'm like, hey, guess what? He's like, what? I go, I'm making a record. He goes, if you fly me in, I'll be on the record. You know, so I don't know how I got the money to get him here. But that record, the first record was, you know, Keith Nunley, Steve Hurley, Farley, Africa, Islam, Will Diaz, Roy, Peter Black, Daryl Pandy. And I had went out to it and found a choir because I wanted a gospel sound to it. I don't know why, but that's just what I wanted to do. And that's when I discovered who's now the world-renowned gospel singer, Ricky Dillard. He sang the chorus in there. So you know, Kenny Jammin' Jason, who I love, who I owe credit to that record, he blew it up on the radio, and that's when it all started, pretty much. So here I am sitting in my house in Fullerton, not a pot to piss in, no money, with my window open, staring down Fullerton, watching all these cars going up and down the street, playing my song. So it was kind of surreal, you know, in a sense.
It was very surreal.
And the funny thing about it is I couldn't sing. So the lead vocalist on my very first record was Keith Nunley of J.M. Silk. Because at that time I was hanging out with Steve Hurley and Keith and, you know, and Farley was there and Jesse Saunders and all those guys. And originally I was trying to have a group with me and Steve Hurley. But, you know, Steve's a phenomenal producer and, you know, I wasn't a singer. So when he met Keith, you know, I kind of started getting kicked to the curb. Like, it's like, hey, wait a minute, you know, you can't sing. So I'm like, no, I can sing. So one day we're in the studio, you know, and I can't sing. And they're like, you know, hey, bro, you know, here I am with all the brothers. Like, man, you're throwing this record off, man. You got to get out of here. So I sat outside and while they sang my first record, pretty much.
Oh, that's cool.
So then after that, I got frustrated. I went home, got aggravated, and then I hit the pen. I said, I got to do something. I love doing this. And then I came out with, by myself, the next record was White Knight Jacks the House. You know, boom, 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 boom.
And that one it was your voice singing,
There
right?
was 100% me on that. You know, and so it evolved. So White Knight Jacks the House, and then the next record was Yo Baby Yo.
Oh.
And that was it. The party was over.
Yeah, the house anthem.
Yeah, that record was a hit for, God, 4 years straight. They didn't die. So I ended up, at that point, then I ended up getting, you know, I was on DJ International for a while. And, you know, I've always been with DJ International in one way or the other. And Rocky and Benji, you know, he's the one who really, truly gave me my break in music. because had he not done that, it wouldn't happen. So when I discovered I could rap was on the B side of Never Give Up. That's the first house record that has rap on it. So you'll hear me there. But then at that point, I was Nick H. I wasn't White Knight yet.
Right. Okay. So
then I became White Knight, and then they changed the record to Never Give Up label back to White Knight, and then Yo Baby Yo blew up, and then that's kind of when everything kind of went somewhere else.
So I'm going to ask the obvious. White Knight. Where did that come from? Where did the name come from, White Knight? Because
now looking at me, you'd be like, okay, I know that name. No, what happened was at the time when we were at Steve Hurley's studio in his house, and Keith was there, and Keith and obviously that's J.M. Stoke, Steve Hurley and Keith Nunley, and they had a friend named Samson Butch Moore, and Butch was my partner. So, it was me and him, and we're sitting there trying to come up with a name. And it was funny because should we be Salt and Pepper? White Olive, Black Olive, because there was a white guy and a black guy in this group, right? So one day I just looked up, I said, well, I'm white, you're black. I said, I'm white and you're Knight. And that's it. So the name White Knight derived from having a Butch as my partner at the time.
Okay.
So, but that happened before Yo Baby Yo. So that was the reason the White Knight Jacks the House came out was Butch was my partner after Never Give Up in that transition period before White Knight Jacks the House. Well, he decided that he didn't want to have any baggage because I couldn't sing, so he went solo, right? So then the White Knight Jacks the House record was that thing blew up, and then Never Give Up Yo Baby Yo blew up. And then I got signed to Jive. And that's when I did Keep It Moving, Get Crazy, Clap Your Hands. And like the whole world changed. But really, growing up in the hood, the White Knight Jacks the House record was a universal record. It was real street. And back then the streets ruled music. There used to be a nightclub called the Flamingo Club.
Oh, I'm Halsted.
Right. So the night that I made Yo Baby Yo, I had an acetate, which was a vinyl record, and I went there, and the first person who ever played Yo Baby Yo was Martin Boogeyman Luna.
That was his home. That was his playground.
Right. He was so popular then that if he played a record in that nightclub, it would blow up in the streets. So it turns out that night, Armando Rivera, Armando, Saturday Night Live, Ain't No Jive, Chicago Dance Party, WBMX, Oak Park, Chicago. He was there. And this was on a Friday. He came up to me. He's like, oh my God, that record's going to be huge. And I was like, really? Cool. He goes, can you come down to the radio station tomorrow? He goes, I'm going to premiere it, which was back at that time unheard of for somebody to premiere a song and a regular, in between the mixes. So he jumped on the radio and he said, I got a real hot record. This record's on fire. And check it out, Yo Baby Yo by White Knight. Boom. That was it. It was history in the making at that time.
So just to let you know, I know you can't see it, but you got Harv Roman, Luis Ramirez, you got a bunch of people, Martha, some of your friends are all online right now,
Nice.
and I and everything like that. So that's
Hey Louis, hey Harv. Hey.
Yeah. So I just wanted to. So I remember that was 1990-ish. Is that about right when you?
Oh, Never Give Up was 86, 89,
Okay.
90, right around 90, 91, 92. The perfect person who knows all this stuff is Harv. And I'm glad that he's there too, because Harv was really instrumental. Because, when he had the WCYC on the South Side, it was huge. The whole South Side followed Harv. And some of my very first interviews, in fact, my very first interview was with Harv. And I used to enjoy going to the Boys and Girls Club and being on his radio show. And it was the craziest thing because you would go down to this place and you would do an interview. And when you'd come out of the station or the club, I think it was upstairs in the boys club, there'd be all these people lined up outside waiting to meet you, and it's like, how do you handle that? You go from one night, you're one guy, and then all of a sudden the next night you're the next guy. But yeah, so I've Harv is one of my great friends too. He's into
Sly's online saying hello, and he thinks
up Sly.
Yeah.
Well, Sly was the DJ at Janelle's who was playing the White Knight records in that era. Actually, Sly was supposed to teach me how to DJ, but we never got together and got that done. But Sly was world famous back then, and I used to sweat him. Hey, Sly, teach me how to DJ. Teach me how to DJ. He's like, I'll get back with you. I'll get back with you. And that was it. But, Sly knew me at that time. Sly, from what I remember, was the hottest DJ out there in that scene at that time.
Well, from what I remember, Janelle's was synonymous with Sly. That was like kind of like Janelle's. Anything, it was a name with Janelle's. There was Sly.
Well, I think it was Sly, and it was Martino Ramos.
Right.
And I think it was Mike Swaz. Don't quote me on that.
No. It was Mike Swaz as well.
And that's where Rafi Rosario would play.
Yeah.
I'm missing somebody. Lugo Rosado, I think.
I know Kenny was there, a special guest every so often, stuff like that. If there's someone that says, let's see if anybody says, if there's somebody else that please, they'll let us know. Because like I said, so here's a record, here's a hit, you're doing these interviews. When do you do your first show? When's your big, because obviously, I think that's where kind of you become an artist.
So here I am. At this point, I got a huge hit record. I'm naive. I don't know what the hell's going on. All I know is when I go home at nighttime, I'm still living on Fullerton. Because I lived on the cruising strip. Gang banging, ballers, cutlasses with rag tops. That was a crazy time. And I believe one of my first shows, big shows, was at the Rainbow. And it was with Al DeBarge.
With Al DeBarge?
Yeah, Al DeBarge. Yeah.
From the DeBarge family?
Yeah, because after Janelle's, I don't know if it was during the same time or after, but the Rainbow was the place that was like hot. It was super.
I remember that. All the floor masters used to go there. Trust me, I know.
And it's funny. I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm still broke at that time, and I'm at home, and the whole jive thing was weird. Andre from Hot Jams. Because you're selling records and tapes at that time. And Andre's getting hold of me saying that this guy in New York's trying to get a hold of me. So I keep calling this record label in New York from a payphone, saying I'm Nick, but I didn't know who Nick was. So they wouldn't take my call. That lady finally got frustrated after 2 or 3 days, and I called and I said, it's White Knight. She goes, oh my God, we've been looking for you for weeks. So I ended up on an airplane. I ended up in New York. I ended up on Jive. And that was pretty instrumental from Wayne Williams. So, Wayne from Chosen Few, he was the A&R guy. He's also the one who discovered R. Kelly. And lots of artists.
I don't know if you know that, but I knew Robert, and I call him Robert. I don't even call him R. Kelly. I call him Robert because when we were breakdancing and we were obviously downtown, we were in the L tracks, and we were up on State Street and stuff like that. That's where I met Robert. I knew him as a singer in the L tracks, so. I know,
I used to dance on the train tracks, right?
Yeah. I mean, but I think it was Madison, we were all there, and he was a singer all the time. And so a lot of times the guys would go down there, obviously to make money, and he was there making money. So we got to know him. We knew who he was. And he was.
Were you slinging on the L tracks? Well, how are you making money on the L track? I'm messing with you.
On the platform. So that's how we knew Robert. And it's just funny how it kind of got full circle. And then when he got famous and stuff like that, he recognized me. He was like, "Hey, Angelo, who calls me Angelo?" After all these years. So I was running to him like, but that was just ironic. Then when I found out that he was signed with Jive Records with Wayne, and then it was like, wait a minute, and then the backstory to you with Jive Records, and you were signed with Jive Records, because I'm still in communication with Wayne. I haven't talked to Robert in a long time. It's been a while, but I know that Wayne and I, we talk about just things that had happened or things that were basically um, funny how things have progressed in the music history and stuff like that. So so your first show was at Rainbow, correct?
No, my very first ever show. Oh no, I'll tell you a really good one. So remember Prano Printers?
Yeah,
Okay, so do you remember the Da Vinci Manor?
yeah.
Okay, so there was these guys, these promoters over there, Terrible Ted and Mr. Felton. Do you remember them?
I just remember being there.
Huge African American house. I mean, juking parties. So I'm in the print shop one day. This was like right around the time I did Janelle's, and they came in. They're like, "Oh my God, we need you." I said, "For what?" They go, "We're doing a New York versus Chicago battle. We have 5,000 people in the Da Vinci Manor ballroom, but we don't have anybody from New York." They offered me $500 in 1989 to go there.
Today's standards, that's like 5,000.
50,000, probably 50,000, right? So they throw me in this car. I'm in the car with these two brothers from the West Side. They were throwing a party, and I didn't know what to do. I said, "Okay, throw Hard Times on by Run DMC." And they threw that on. I came walking out. They thought I was from New York because that's when all the B-boy stuff was going on. The place went up for grabs. They treated me like I was like a rock star. Once you get a taste of that, it's like an addiction. There's no feeling in the world that you get when you go in front of thousands of people. That energy is just like, it's really hard to explain.
Well, I mean, I can understand you because when we were breakdancing.
Oh, but let me interrupt her though. So I'm up there for 5 minutes. The place is going crazy. I walk off. Whoever was from Chicago was in there. They're chanting "New York, New York, New York," and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" They took me out the back door, Pietro, threw me in the car, drove me back down North Avenue, and dropped me off at the print shop with the $500. And they just left me hanging like I wanted that taste to do that again. So that's how after that I ended up with Jesse, going to Janelle's, and then doing Rainbow.
Right?
And then from Rainbow, it became like Soldier Field, and it became, Navy Pier, and the McCormick Place. Then it just totally changed.
Well, I remember, and because you mentioned Soldier Field, I remember you had close ties with the what is it? What was the festival called at the time?
Pan American Fest.
Pan American Fest, and I remember, I remember everybody from Chicago, as far as like Benji Espinosa was there, and a lot of guys. There's a picture with Martin Boogeyman. I think it's Benji, Luis Roland Rivera, and I think you were part of that picture. It's like a black and white picture where you guys are all like backstage or something like that.
Where's this picture at? I want a copy.
So Lewis is the one who posted that up, Lewis Roland Rivera. And I just remember, and at the time, I believe I wasn't in that scene, in the music scene aspect of it. I think I was just, I want to say I was DJing, that's what I was DJing. But I just remember going to the Pan Am Fest, and your name was always there. I mean, you were like.
Is that what happening is, I'm not going to get into all that, but I started working with Pinky.
Okay.
I believe George Ortega, but as an artist, and so what ended up happening is, as time evolved, I ended up being the one bringing in the groups.
Okay.
But I was working with CMN and And
Okay, okay.
for
But that was CFA, right? It was called CFA at the time.
yeah, it was Cardenas Fernandez network.
Yeah, yes.
Right. So yeah, my roots go back all the way to growing up in the hood and dealing with the Latinos, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Colombians, you name it, I was there. But you had to be really persistent back then. Because I always look at it. I was such a pain in the ass. I forced my way in the door.
You?
Yeah, it was. But you can do anything you want in life if you push yourself hard enough.
Well, I mean,
The entertainment industry. One day you're the hottest in the world, then you're not. Then you're the hottest in the world, then you're not. Then you're the hot. It's called riding the wave.
well, exactly. And obviously, with everything going on right now, this is a different wave we have to ride, and I understand that. Um, but I mean, so that went well for you. And then where do you come? Because you started becoming a promoter after that, right? I mean,
Yeah, after I was doing the festivals, then I had Eric's North nightclub on the north side.
Yep.
And I started doing that. And I think I was one of the first people to bring Cynthia to Chicago back then. Brenda K. Starr, George Lon. And, then it just kind of evolved into, Voyeur, Door 21. I wish Luis Ramirez was on this conference call.
No, he's online. He's online as well. But
I wish he was on the Zoom because him and I could tell some fun stories. When I was a promoter, he was the one who was always driving me. We were always going back and forth. He's a great friend of mine, but man, I could tell you we could tell you some stories. That should be a whole nother day, lifetimes of, because I had Voyeur on one block and he had Buzz, and then he had Voyeur and I wasn't there. Then I came, it was great. You never know when you're living some of the funnest times of your life.
well, that's one of the things I'm glad you brought that up about him doing that and you doing that, because I remember that was one of the things that Pablo Ponca was talking about, how Pablo did his thing, Al did his thing, and then there was
but Luis was there because him and Ziggy had Central Park. No, it was Central.
Right.
Just all kinds of stuff. So when there was the print shop, which was Prano Printer, which was Mark and Lucy, you'd have to do flyers and posters and everything. Remember, cutting and pasting? That's where everybody went to do shows, and they would do these layouts. And that
was the hub.
I learned early on, if I hung out in this place, I could get my picture on a flyer. And so what happened is I used to sit there, and when I had a hit record, I'm like, oh, I know how to make money. I'm going to go to the print shop. And they'd come in, can we book you? Can we book you? And I would just sit there and collect money and be on flyers. Collect money and be on flyers. And then and then I'll tell you a real funny one. So there was, Charlie Martinez and now, what, I'll pass on that one. But, that I got some good stories. We gotta, there's so many branches to this tree that we could stay here for hours,
Well, I mean, that's what I wanted to, because I know, when did me and you actually meet? When did we officially say, okay, hey, I'm was I Angelo, or was I Prieto, or was
No, I remember getting a call. See, I want to joke around. And I can't. I was gonna say some outlandish stuff that's not true just to get you to come out, but I just rethought about that, and that's not cool. You know what? I think wow. I feel like I've known you my whole life. But I don't remember, was it from Phoenix Club?
Was it where?
Phoenix Club?
Because I thought that we met when I was doing, I think, the Tuesday Night Boxing.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
I think that's when we met. And I think you were, someone introduced us.
Yeah, and I used to go to Tuesday Night Boxing all the time.
Right, and then I think it was Boogeyman that actually introduced us. I think it was Boogeyman because Boogeyman was always there.
Okay.
And that then I think that was the discussion was about having you maybe perform on a Tuesday night boxing. But I remember that was a discussion with Ruben Pazmino. But I know Ruben Pazmino and Ivan had kind of they were like sometimes.
I was supposed to, and then it ended because I remember being in talks with them.
Right.
And so right when I agreed to do it, it was over. But let me ask you a question. Was R. Kelly boxing there one night, or was that he was just sitting on the ring?
No, he was just there. Robert was there. Robert, and that's where, and since you brought it up, that's where he recognized me when he walked in. And he goes, Angelo, and like at the time I'm Prieto to everybody. So to have somebody call me Angelo was kind of like, who knows me?
Yeah, and back then it's like the ringside. I think to be on ringside on Tuesday Night Boxing, you had like a 2 to 3 bottle minimum. Yep. It was all ballers. The whole place was ballers.
Oh, that was Martin Boogeyman calls it his section because it was right underneath the DJ booth. You remember right where the stage would be? That's where all the ballers were at. And all the baseball players, football players, all the singers, all the famous people, like the Renegades were there, Usher was there, and obviously Robert, R. Kelly was there. So that was like, but it was just funny to me because when before the actual boxing started, I started exactly at midnight. Martin used to always come with somebody new, and I think that's where I met you. That's where he introduced me, came up to the DJ booth, and he's like, "Hey man, I want to introduce you to White Knight," and I already knew your songs and stuff like that, and it was like, "Oh man," and of course my brain starts working, and I'm like, "Man, we should have him do a show here, do a performance here." So me and Ruben have always been really good friends and stuff like that. So at the next day, I'm talking to him. I said, "Hey, we really should get White Knight here because let's look at the demographics that we had. All the Puerto Ricans, all the Mexicans, all Latinos, and Black people that know you." So we're like, that would be great, man, to do like a concert before the boxing per se. We could charge more, make more money, blah, blah, blah.
It's funny you say that because I remember back then, imagine this, because, at that time I was that white boy who lives down the street, before the hit record. So I knew all the guys, but they really never messed with me. It was funny how after White Knight Jacks the House, after Yo Baby Yo, how suddenly my whole house around my block, I had like 24-hour neighborhood security. I had to move out of there because it was like, here I am living on the strip, and then I got like 30 guys outside my house, and.
So Nick, where exactly was the area that you lived at that you're saying on the strip? Where were you at exactly?
I lived on at that time. I lived on the 2400 block of Fullerton, that's where the cruising strip started on Fullerton.
Right. Right. So you were in the thick of it.
Yeah.
So,
I was on the border. But it was interesting because I look back at it now and it was almost surreal.
But there weren't a lot of Polish people. Am I correct? There weren't a lot of Polish people in the neighborhood there.
Well, here, I'm not Polish.
Okay. See,
let's correct that. So I'm Irish and Russian.
Okay. All right.
And I've been called Polish for a long time. I don't have any problem with that, but I'm Russian and Irish, and that's it.
So but the neighborhood wasn't predominantly, there wasn't a lot.
Pre-existing before the neighborhood changed, it was all Russian, Ukrainian, European,
okay,
right?
And that's going back in the 50s or something like that, right? That was the neighborhood.
Well, I think it was all the way up to 1974.
Okay.
And then right around 74 is when there was an insurgence where that area had became predominantly Latino. So I remember driving in the car, with my mom, like, oh my God, I was going past Humboldt Park during the Puerto Rican riots. To this, I remember them flipping over the police cars, and I'm like, this is fucking cool. We got to take it out over here, But it's like anybody, man. Wherever you come from, you're always going to be part of that. That's you. That's your roots.
Well, but Okay, so you grew up in the hood. You were surrounded. You had like 30 people. I'm sure even the police department, those guys had to got to know you as well because they probably seen you grow up, and and I know there's a lot of the same cops are in the neighborhood. I'm sure they were impressed as well because they knew.
Well, no, you got to realize back then they had this thing called search and frisk, and they had gang crime tactical cops, and they were there were good ones and there were bad ones, But when they pull up on the block, they didn't care. They throw you against the wall, shake you down, tell you they need a gun by 6 o'clock. Where the hell am I going to get a gun by 6 o'clock? I'm getting, you better have me a gun by 6 o'clock or I'm locking you up. For what? I'm not, So I had my fair share. I never got a criminal record, but I've had my share of getting in the back of the car and, they used to carry the Polaroid camera and take a snapshot of you,
Oh Jesus!
and I'm then when you get famous, it's like all of a sudden that same guy that roughed you up and threw you in the back of the car wants you to let him and his kids backstage. And it's like, oh, you didn't remember, I'm not supposed to remember you chasing me down the alley.
I bet.
So it's that's just, I guess, that's why I've always been so against racism. I grew up in a urban environment, which is all Latino, African American, and that's who I was hanging around with. That's who I was with. So when they got beat down, I got beat down. There was no different. That's how you learn how life really is. Back then the police were like the Nazis coming after you. They didn't really care. But here's the interesting part about it. Once you grow up and then you have gang member security, you do get to a certain level where you really need people who have guns with you all the time. So your security kind of changes. Your security detail will change. Because now you're a higher value target. So then you learn you learn all sides of anything. Like I think that you got to stand in different people's shoes to see where they see things. Everybody sees life through a different lens. That's the problem. You could see something one way because the way you're living, and then the other person on the other side sees it through a different type of lens as well. So,
Yeah, I mean that's just I mean, but I look at it this way also because if you're from the hood, we're all I would almost say 90% of the guys who are in the music industry are from the hood. Let's put
I don't know anybody who's not from the hood that's in the music industry.
So, but and that's what I'm really proud of. Let's say Chicago as a whole, because that tells you that just because you have these walls built around you, you can break them. You can get through.
Don't forget back then growing up, the farthest you would travel. I lived on Fullerton and Western, and Janelle's was on Pulaski and Fullerton, at that Janelle's. So we would walk from the house to the club to the house. But that was our world. I think back then everybody lived within a 16 block radius. So you'd look out your window and you'd see the guy with the cutlass, with the rag top and the bling, and he's out there doing his thing. And you could just look out the window, and those were the images of a role model. Like, oh my God, I'm not gonna ever have a girlfriend, if I don't have a rag top, cutlass, whatever. And it's interesting because things aren't really much different from then till today.
Well, has anybody ever compared you or asked you like in the aspect of like Slim Shady? Has anybody ever?
Well, yeah, because I was one of the first white artists ever signed to a famous rap label, which was Jive. But you got to understand, you know, it's like anything. It's like NBA, it's like NFL. You know, we were the ones that paved the way for the next generation of artists to prosper. You know, it's just like, you know, basketball. Some of the greatest basketball players paved the way, you know. So, you know, you're part of it. You know, when you become a legend in something, that's not good either, because then your time, the clock's ticking, right?
Right.
You know, that's like, hey, you know, we're almost done with your ass. You reached legendary status. Now, what is the next thing? You know, oh, rest in peace. That guy was, you know, he did this. Da, da, da. So, you know, I don't know. I was talking. It was funny. I was somewhere Thursday, and I was talking to this guy, and he gets stem cell shots. You know, they get stem cell shots now, and I guess it's supposed to make you younger and repair your body. So,
Not good. Not good.
yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change any of it.
So what's are you still producing? Are you still doing you know, are you still into, I mean, because I know you still perform, but are you still producing? Are you still doing the production?
Yeah, I got something coming. You know, that's more current. I dropped a bunch of stuff lately, and but it's really, you know, thanks to quarantine, I'm spending the majority of my time recording. So
Is that good or bad for you? I mean, as far as the quarantine per se, is it helping you because you're doing, you know?
yeah, I love what I do. You know, the thing is that my music, I'm going back to my Latino roots. So
And you don't speak Spanish, so I right?
you don't know that. You don't know that. You know? If you play stupid, you'll learn a lot.
Well, that's life.
Yeah, you know. So you know, I'm not saying I'm making a salsa album now, you know, but if you listen to the Pit Bulls, the Daddy Yankees, that's really hip house. It's the same music that me and Fast Eddie created.
Oh my God, I've been saying that for the longest time. Thank you, Nick. I've been saying that for the longest time because
No, but that's okay. I mean, listen, there's a thing in the music industry. You're only as good as your next hit, right?
or your last hit, your last hit.
Well, your next hit, because your last hit's over. You know, that's just my opinion, right? You know, but you're only, you know, you're only the way I say it is you're only as good as your next hit.
Right.
Because if you don't have another hit, it's over. You know, unless you've been fortunate enough to be a legend doing something, which is great. But you know, look at you got Mick Jagger and what's that other cat? You know, these guys are 80, 90 years old. So as an artist, you never stop. You know?
No, that's true.
The only time you stop being an artist is when they put the dirt on you. You know,
This is true.
that's theoretically what is over. And we've lost so many people, you know, with this coronavirus going on. I know as of yesterday, I think my count was 12 or 13 people I've known. And that's people, you know, in California, New York, you know, interesting enough, and I hope that it doesn't happen, but, you know, as of at this point, there's been no one in Chicago. But, you know,
I mean, I don't, you know, that's the big question now. How far this is going to go? To what extent is this going? You know, we still don't know. And that's, I guess, that's the not knowing is the scarier part than knowing. You know, I think that kind of is what's got. I know, you know, and back to you producing and stuff like that. I have you. Are you going to change your style, or is it going to be more the house dance music, or are you going to go? Because I've seen different artists go, you know, change, evolve with the times. You know, you're going to do reggaeton because that's the big thing right now. You know, I mean, that's, you know, that's pop now. Is that or popular?
I'm not going to tell nobody because they're going to be in their car and they're going to hear it and they're going to be like, damn, that sounds so familiar. And then I want it to be a surprise, really. I have a lot of plans for that. You know, the interesting thing is that, you know, when you've done something like this for as long as I have, you know, you're the soundtrack of people's lives.
Correct.
the hit songs that you make, the music that you make is the soundtrack of people's lives. And it's also right now you're in the second, third generation, where, a lot of these, 30, 40-year-old, not even 40, that's too old, 28, 36. A lot of these kids, grew up in the back of their parents' car, their dad, their mom, listening to this music. And I think that this generation of fans is bigger than our original generation. The numbers are greater. The record streams they morph the era. So, and with technology and streaming and festivals and concerts, it's interesting when you see certain people come up to you like, oh my God, I love you. And you look at them and you're like, really? How old are you? Well, I'm 17. Oh, okay. You talking to the right guy? No, I'm kidding. Oh, that's all my dad listened to, or my mom.
Yep.
And so many people, have passed over the years. And, a lot of people are left with those memories, Hey, there's a lot of people gangbanging to my music too. Harv Romano vouched for this. They wanted me to do the soundtrack for Gangland.
Yeah, that's what it said. He just put that out. So,
yeah. So, and he was there, and I had the discussion with him, and I turned it down. So I probably lost $1 million on that one, but that's okay. Because at the time I wanted a PSA at the end of it to say, if you're in trouble and you need help, call 1-800-GET-OUT or whatever. And they told me no. So I told them they can't use my track. So if you listen to the soundtrack is my song for Gangland, but it's stripped out. It's the Make You Dance to the Boom and System record, but it's just the beats and the bass line.
right.
Because I refuse to sing it or rap on it. So, no, but there's a lot of stuff like that, So what was your question?
No, yeah, I'll let you go on. That's right. I'll let you go on. So, I mean, that's where I was just wondering, because I know once a producer, always a producer, once an artist, always an artist, and stuff like that. It just interesting.
The new stuff was supposed to drop, obviously, for this summer, right? And a lot of it's done, but it's not going to be released until I can go out and do what I do, and that's just how it's going to be.
I think that's just every artist right now. There's so many people in all genres. They're ready to drop in the summer, and then with this going on.
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's like, why drop new music when your old music is bigger than it's ever been? But now that everybody's stuck in the house, that's what they're listening to. It's crazy.
Right.
It's just everybody can stream. So, I'm kind of like, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit on this a little longer.
Well, so here's another.
It was actually supposed to be out a couple weeks ago, but I'm kind of waiting. You're gonna love it. I'm gonna send you a copy of it, but I'm not giving anyone a copy of all this stuff because I don't want to. So
Thank you.
I stay in the studio, record it, and mix it. There's only one copy, and that's it.
Well, here, since you excuse me, since you brought this up about recording, when you did Yo Baby Yo, Never Give Up on It, that was all on vinyl. It was no
Well, I'll
such.
tell you an interesting thing about Yo Baby Yo. When I did Yo Baby Yo, that was I'm cruising down the street. I stop at a stoplight. Me and Kevin are on our way to the studio, and we recorded Yo Baby Yo at Dane Rowade's studio in Evanston, Illinois. So for me and Kevin to go to Evanston by the lake, we thought we were doing real things, But we literally recorded Yo Baby Yo. I think all it took to make the entire record back then of a couple hours. And Dane Rowade, who was the engineer who had the studio, you would cut records together with tape. So I'm freaking out. There's hundreds of feet of tape laid on the floor of my song. but you have to chop it all together. It's not like digital now.
Right.
You
So
know,
no, that's what I was going to ask you. How did this evolve for you when it was the digital age after the analog age? That's what I was going to say. How were you able to handle that
yeah,
switchover?
it's interesting. It's just a natural person, you know, it just happens. The thing about music is that if somebody likes something and they want it, they're going to find it. You know, a lot of my stuff was on YouTube. You know, I've had a lot of things taken down in the last few years, but you know, I've had tens and tens of thousands of people. There was a certain point, you're a DJ, where you jump on YouTube if you couldn't get a record, you know, I can't tell you how many hundreds of thousands of dollars we haven't made because people ripped it off of YouTube back in the day. You know, the other thing too that was crazy was Napster.
Well, yeah, that's well. Good. Thank you for bringing that up. That's
I mean, millions of copies of records were just given. Everybody was giving it to each other. You know, so now you're in a different space. You know, uh, I guess people feel that they can just consume music, um, and that's fine. But music seems like the life expectancy of music now doesn't last like it did back when we were making hits. You know, if you made a hit record, that thing lasted for years. You know, people dispose of music, you know, within a month or two, they're going on to the next thing.
unless you have an iconic song that everybody recognizes, like for instance, Elvis Costello and Suavemente, right? Everybody poof, right away.
Yeah.
You know, Buenos de Swing and Los Hermanos Bizarro. Boom.
Here's
You
the
know,
thing about our most legendary artists.
But-
How many anthems do they all have? Usually one anthem.
Right. And you have Yo Baby Yo, Yo. That's your anthem.
Yeah.
That's what you know.
Yeah.
And I think if somebody was in Brazil or somebody's in in India, Egypt, Alaska, they know Yo Baby Yo and White Knight. They know already.
Well, it's interesting because I was looking at it yesterday, and you know that Japan, China, Africa, you know, obviously Europe, but you know, Chile, Mexico, Santo Domingo. I mean, the music's, you know, music's something that goes everywhere. You know, I happen to like the digital age because you can see it, you know. Like there's certain services like when you're an artist, kind of like me, and I have certain access to certain things. So you can see in real time throughout the world where your music's being played live. I got to come and show it to you from the different streaming services. It took me about 4 years to get access to that, and I'm fortunate to have it. But I'll come over and see you one day, and we'll log in, and you're going to just see it pop up. It looks like the coronavirus map. Yeah.
So I guess the next question is, what would you consider, because you traveled all over the world doing this, what would you consider the highlight of your career that you performed at? Like where? Taj Mahal? And, you know, I don't know where you performed at.
I've been fortunate, and you know, there's been thousands of these faces, you know, and thousands of shows. One of the shows I remember the most was there's a radio station in New York called Hot 97. You know, and at the time, my booking agent was Mark Cass from Famous Artist Agency. He goes, "I need you to do the show," and it was me, and you know, there was a ton of artists there, but there was almost 100,000 people on this beach.
Wow.
So we're in New York. We go into New York. They throw us in a helicopter, fly us to this beach. From this beach, they put us in a limo. We end up on a stage, and there's like 100,000 people there. And when you come off stage, they were real smart. They had like they had to be like 1.5 story fences up. So they're shuffling you in. So the helicopter lands, you go to a waiting space, they put you in a limo, they move you up to the stage, you do your show, and then you have to go right back to the limo, right? And as you're looking, you see thousands of women on these fences, screaming, trying to get to you as they're forcing you into the car. And then before you know it, you're in a helicopter and you're back in New York, and 10 minutes later, you're in your hotel. So that was kind of crazy. You know, you go from helicopter to limo to show to people crawling on this fence. It was just weird. It would look like the German wall when they knocked it down. Just thousands of people climbing on this fence. So it was kind of like Woodstock.
And how long ago was that?
I'd rather not say.
No, I no. The reason why I'm saying is that because I only picture that in modern times that happening, but I'm guessing that this was back 90s.
Listen, modern times, half of the stuff that we went through coming through this, you know, the fire marshal would have closed all these things down.
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to say what venue I was at, and you've been to this venue too, but they had like an 8-story pedestal where they had DJs that we know that were very famous, DJing, and the thing was wobbling back and forth. And you know, and this guy's like 2 stories up in the air, and these guys made these things. They didn't have a, you know, construction crew, or, you know, they ran and bought some wood and made this stuff. And, you know, I just remember how come they haven't fallen off of there? You know what I'm talking about? Were you there?
No. I mean, but I probably I was there. I probably was there. But you know, when I'm at these festivals, you know, I'm a different realm of this scene now because I'm there marketing, doing a lot of the marketing for what I do and stuff like that. So I'm running always in the back where you guys, I talk to everybody and I'm talking, you know, bullshitting with everybody, you know, and then I kind of go into the front, and I guess maybe I'm not that famous in a sense that I can actually be face to face with people, or people aren't, you know, jumping all over me and stuff like that. But I think that has to do with the fact that I never, yes, people knew me, but I've always been that in the crowd. I didn't care about being, you know, because let's face it, we know a lot of guys, a lot of people in this business, they're always in VIP. They want to be in VIP.
I'll tell you something interesting. I did this for the first time. This past summer, I'm not going to say where it was, but I went to a show. It was a festival. I put on a hat. I put on a disguise. And I went there and stood in the crowd next to, they have like this, you know, they set up these pop-up bars. And it was interesting having the ability to sit there for the first time and have, you know, a drink with a disguise on. And I actually got to go see the show and do it and then leave. But meanwhile, I'm standing around all the people that if I wasn't doing that, they would have, you know, recognized me. And
they would have stopped you from having a good time for yourself, right?
No, you know what? I appreciate everybody. You
Right.
know, if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have a success. You know,
Agreed.
but you know, so it's okay. But you know, I just wanted to see it from a perspective of, you know, what it's like to just be there as a spectator. You know, no ego. You know, checked it at the door, just went in, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, man, I really want to do this more. You know, but let me tell you, wearing a wig ain't no fun.
No, and you know, and let's put it this way: there's a lot of people looking for you for favors too. Hey, get me backstage. Hey, you know.
That's every time.
Yes,
You know, it's funny. Like nobody knows you until 2 days before the big event.
Yep.
Bro, remember me? Dude, if I went into my Facebook right now, you know how like when people message you that you don't know, it comes up with a black face, like not a black face, it's like the face is darkened out.
Right.
It doesn't say who it's from. You know, well, recently they fixed that, so you can go back and click on it and look at the profile. And I have a whole folder full of that. You know,
I bet. It's just, you know, and
you gotta, the other thing too is in most cases when you do that, you know, some of these guys got phone blockers on and all this. You know, you have to change your phone number all. You know, and that's because there's always somebody who gives it to somebody who wants to call you. You know, and you know, they think, hey, can you come over to my studio? You know, I'm a DJ. Can you know, da 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 da, or I'm an artist, or you know, my
Well, I mean,
daughter singer.
that's the other obvious, but the other ones is also the women are like, hey, you know, let's hook up, let's hook up, because you know that's just the life of a celebrity. Am I correct? That you got all these women that are trying to, you know, let's hook up, let's do, you know, that's just, you know, and I'm just talking about you, Nick, but I'm talking about DJs, you know, dancers, and everybody else in this
Oh,
industry.
you know what? I don't know. When the longer you've done this, you get to be a really good judge of character. You know, and my thing was always been, it's not about quantity. It's about quality. If you get the right woman, you don't need different women. You know, you don't need all of it. You know,
No,
it's just
Nick,
attracting, in my opinion. You know,
I agree, but I'm just talking
you
about
asked me the question when I had my first hit record. You know, you live and learn quick. You
Yeah.
know, not every situation's a good situation. You know, I've made it this far in life. Never caught nothing. You know, I was always kind of.
Knock on wood.
No, but you know, I never been promiscuous. You know, the thing is, you know, and this is for a whole nother conversation, but you know, when you grow up in the street, like I did over there, you know, you see so much happen. You lose so many friends. Life's really fast. You know, so when you get to the point where you've, you know, lived that long, um, you got to just, you know, take a step back and see things for what they really are. You know what I mean?
True,
You
true.
know, so, but I got to jump. So, you ready to do part 2 in another date?
No problem, Nick. Thank you very much. Anything you want to say to everybody online? There's quite a few people online. Anything you want to say
Thanks
to
for
them?
checking in. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I need to go get a enchilada. That's what I'm gonna and get some food. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. And you know, let's do this again. So there's so much to talk about. You know?
All right. I mean, I know you got a lot of history and a lot of stories and stuff like that. Me and you have talked many things that have come up and stuff like that. So yes, I would love to do this again. Thank you very much for you being your first artist interview. And thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, we do this again at 8 o'clock in about a couple of hours. And Nick, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a good holiday. Take care. Be safe. And God bless you.
God bless you.
Right.